Rag vibe, baby.
Welcome to the Cup of Joe Show, where we explore the journey of recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. One story, one conversation, and one step at a time. I'm your host, Joe, creating a safe space for honest discussions about the challenges and triumphs of addiction and alcoholism. In each episode, we'll hear inspiring stories and uncover tools that make healing possible. Sobriety is not a one-size-fits-all journey, and you don't have to face it alone. Recovery is possible, and it's worth it. Thank you for joining the Cup of Joe Show. Now let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cup of Joe Show. I'm your host, of course, Joe. And before we get started, I always want you to know if you're struggling right now, just know you're not alone. Please don't suffer in silence. I'm really excited about my guest today, Vanessa D. She's been sober since September 26, 2019. She's a wife for 24 years, a mom of 5, and a proud grandmother of 5. After finding a new way to live through the rooms of recovery, where she hears the voice of God through others, Vanessa has built a life centered around family, connection, and the outdoors. This one is especially meaningful as her husband, Jason, joined us on the podcast last year. And I was telling Vanessa before the show, I remember Jason fondly because he was my first recording outside of the continental U.S. I recorded Jason when he was in Alaska. Anyway, today we get to hear Vanessa's side of the journey. Even through life's highs and lows, including the recent loss of a beloved pup, she continues to walk this path with faith, strength, and gratitude. I'm really looking forward to hearing Vanessa's story, so grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's get into it. Hi, Vanessa. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Oh, thank you so much for your willingness to come on and share your story.
No, definitely.
So what was it like growing up, Vanessa?
Growing up was pretty close to ideal, you know. I had a really hardworking dad who owned his own business. I had a mom who got to stay at home with my sister and I, and you know, it was just kind of your typical upbringing. You know, my parents had their ups and downs as a couple. I don't have alcoholic parents, you know. They were normal people.
What was your relationship with alcohol or drugs? Was there any around you at that time, or?
You know, other than you know, my parents took us out to dinner. My mom would have a glass of wine. My dad, after the meal, would have a glass of cognac, and I don't even think he would finish it. If my parents had people over for like the Super Bowl or just, you know, like a couple over, they would maybe have a couple beers. I remember, and this is probably my alcoholic mind. Other kids don't remember these kinds of things. Like, I remember my parents would buy a 6-pack of beer and it would stay in our fridge for quite a while, you know? And the fact that I was noticing this at 5 and 6 years old probably should have told me something, but I know now.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Was there any like indication that maybe you were a risk for, you know, addiction or anything like that that you remember?
You know, I don't really remember. I know, you know, I know all the things about an alcoholic now, you know. I don't know these things growing up, but I would pay attention to when my parents would drink. And you know, my parents have passed now, and you know what, they were, if there's a such thing as regular pot smokers, they were regular pot smokers. Like, they would share a joint at night before going to bed. But I know now, like, I paid very close attention to those kinds of things. If my mom had a beer, if she had a glass of wine, even at my age now, I can remember watching it and like, why aren't you finishing that? Because everybody who drinks this magical elixir seems more calm and happier. So why wouldn't you finish the whole thing? And I did have those parents that, you know, as my sister and I got older and were nearing being teenagers and stuff, like they told us, if you're going to drink, we'd rather you drink at home. Or, you know, if you do go to a party, we don't want you drinking and driving, and call us. And I think what my mind heard is you're allowed to drink. So I was kind of off and running with that.
Well, that was so. Do you remember the first time you felt the effects of alcohol?
I do. I was 13 years old. I played softball. And I played travel ball. So, you know, a lot of times, I'd be with girls who are a little bit older than I was. So I'm 13 and some of the girls on the team are 15, 16. And, we had a slumber party, and one of the girls had an older brother, and he went and bought us Zimas, which I don't know if you ever tried them. I will always speak fondly of those. And you know, there's probably like 10 of us girls, and we're going to share a 6-pack of Zima. And I did not want to share. I took that first sip, and, it did exactly what I wanted it and needed it to do. I felt like I could breathe, you know? I was a really fearful kid growing up, little one, very scared all the time. You know, if a house alarm would go off, I'm terrified. It's like someone's going to jail, someone's going to die. Like that's just how my mind thought, even when I was young. Very scared of what people think of me, my parents, my friends, my teachers, all of that. So I remember when I drank that Zima, it was just like, I don't care. I don't care anymore. And I didn't, the first time I drank, I did not get drunk. Like I did not black out. I didn't fall down or anything like that. It was that feeling with that Zima is what I chased the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. It's funny. I'm embarrassed. I don't know if I've even said this before on the thing, but my first drinking was warm peach schnapps under the Wildwood, New Jersey boardwalk.
You did it, right?
I don't think, I didn't get drunk, but I think what you just said is like hit home. Is like, man, I chased that.
Mm-hmm.
I chased that I'm okay feeling, after that,
Yes.
So when was the first time you kind of, you knew you overdid it,
The first time I knew I overdid it, I was 14. I was at school. It was, and I can remember this like it happened yesterday. It was the Friday before winter break. And, all of my classes were having fun, having class parties. And, one of my friends, he brought whiskey in apple juice bottle, perfect. Nobody knows we're drinking. And he was like, you want some? And I had not tried whiskey. And I'm, if there was one area in my life I didn't have fear, it was when it came to alcohol and drugs. I did not say no when you offered it to me. And so we're drinking this whiskey and I'm just getting more and more drunk. We got to lunchtime and I can barely walk. Everybody knows I'm drunk. And I remember my friends, because my next class after lunch, I was going to have to take a math final. They all knew I have this test coming up. I play softball. I can't get bad grades. And they're force feeding me Funyuns. And to this day, I will not eat Funyuns. That was kind of my first taste of incomprehensible demoralization. Like I was so embarrassed. I could not feed myself. They were putting them in my mouth for me. And I went to go to my math class and everything is spinning. I can barely talk. I knew I was about to throw up. And so I told my teacher, I think I have the stomach flu. Can I go to the nurse? And I went to the nurse. And before I started throwing up, I said, call my mom. I'm really sick. I'm in that bathroom throwing up. And I can remember thinking like, I'm never going to do this again, but I did it wrong. I'll do it differently. And it was like, there was definitely a line crossed that day. My mom ended up catching me. My consequence was when my dad got home. I went home and passed out immediately, and I woke up and he was sitting next to my bed, and I woke up and he was smiling and he said, get up, we're going to the ball field. And at this point I already had a hangover, it was like the worst punishment he could give me. And I remember my sister, she's a couple years younger than me, and she's just calling me names. But it just didn't occur to me that maybe I shouldn't be doing this. It was do it better, be smarter.
So did you ever get better at it?
Probably not. No. I in some ways, yes, I am one of those alcoholics. I don't get caught a lot. The outward consequences that a lot of people have suffered, my story, I have never been to jail. And I say yet with everything. I know what I'm capable of. I have never been to jail. I also, besides alcohol, when I liked smoking weed. I got caught once with that. I did have that consequence. I got kicked off the team, but I didn't get in trouble with my parents. They just found me a new travel team to join. So in my mind, I'm just thinking, just don't get caught, and it's okay. You're not doing anything wrong, because your parents would be mad at you if you were doing something wrong. I always had a justification in my mind. But I had my first blackout when I was 17 years old. And some really dark things happened to me as a result of that. And again, it was just like, do it better. And I did. After that, between 17 and 24, 25, I think I had one more blackout, but at that point I was already with my husband and I was safe. I knew nothing bad was going to happen. And then from 25 to 40, there were no more blackouts. But nothing good was happening. Nothing good. So did I get better? Not really. I just didn't get caught.
Well, did you experience, like financial or health problems or anything like that as a result of that kind of stuff?
Financial, definitely. I met my husband, who is also an alcoholic, and I always, whenever I speak or share and I talk about him, I'm not breaking his anonymity. He knows he's a part of my story, but I met him right after, I got pregnant at 19 years old. Or no, I'm sorry. I got pregnant at 20. I had been dating a guy. I was using meth at this point, hiding it from him. He had no idea. He didn't know I used any other than smoking weed. And he thought I drank like a normal, 19, 20-year-old. He had no idea how I really was, because I've always known, like, hide those parts of you. Don't let people know what you're really like. Don't let people know how you think. And unless you're at a party, don't let people know how you really drink or use. Because even though I didn't know I was an alcoholic, I knew there was something different about me. And so I met my husband shortly after I had my son. I already knew he was an alcoholic. He worked with my dad, and I remember my dad getting phone calls about, my not yet husband getting DUIs. So I'm like, oh, I met him. He was tall and cute, and he had 3 boys, and I have a little boy. And I thought, I'm going to save him. He's not going to, I want him to drink. I need him to drink, but he's not going to do the thing. No more jail, no more DUIs. We're going to ride off into the sunset. We're going to have the perfect Brady Bunch life. It's going to be awesome. And it immediately wasn't. We get an apartment together. We're already having to borrow money. I can remember that first year of us living together. Electricity gets shut off, gas gets shut off, all of that. But there was always alcohol. And I used to like to put the blame on him, like it's his fault. It's his fault. He's older. He should know better. But I knew what I was doing. When I go buy the beer and the wine and the vodka or whatever it is that I'm drinking at the time, like, should I be putting that money aside to pay the electricity, pay the rent on time? Yes, but I'm not going to, because I just figure I'll drink through it and it'll be better. And in my mind, it would get better because then, we pay the electricity, everything's fine, but our poor kids, we would try to turn it into like fun games for them. And I know, at least for me, it was so that they weren't paying attention to me drinking while, we're sitting around the table playing a game by candlelight. Like, don't look at mom. Please don't look at mom and see, because one of our boys, he's already a young teenager. Like, he probably knows if they can buy beer and they can buy alcohol, like, why can't they pay the bills? But I'm selfish and self-centered to my core.
You're not alone.
I know that now.
Vanessa.
Yeah.
I would have shoe boxes full of unopened envelopes, bills that I don't know why I would just keep them in shoe boxes and I wouldn't open them.
Yes.
It's like
same. Yeah. If I can't see it, it's not there. It's not a problem.
Yeah. I literally, I think back and I'm like, man, that was kind of crazy to do that. I mean, I would not pay anything,
Right.
And, so man, that yeah. How did it impact your relationship with your husband? I mean, was it,
the first, I want to say the first 5 years we were together, and actually a little less than that, probably the first 4 years we were together, I just kind of thought maybe this is normal, even though I didn't grow up with that kind of upbringing, ever. My childhood, there was always enough money. Bills were paid, we're not getting evicted anywhere. But I just kind of figured, my husband's older, he'll figure it out. I'm just going to follow along. So the first few years, it didn't really impact our relationship. And then we got married. And then I got pregnant, purposely, actually, we have 5 kids. Our 5th one, the one we have together, is the only one who was planned. So I'm like, hey, I got to be doing something right. But, at the end of my pregnancy, he got a new job, and that job, it was okay to drink at. It was fine. As long as you were making the company money, they really didn't care. And I saw him. I watched people. I always have, drunk or sober. I watch people, and I really kind of watched him cross that line, but I wasn't paying attention to myself crossing that line, because we were both doing it it just looked different. My alcoholism looks different than my husband's, but his was a lot more outward. And so there was a lot of pointing the finger, and now out loud, I'm blaming him. Like, this is your fault. The first time I ever put hands on him, and I didn't do it the whole time, but the first time I put hands on him, our daughter was probably, I don't know, she wasn't even a year old. We have two other boys who are at home. One, he's still little. He's like 6 or 7. Our other one at this point is, 17 years old. And he got drunk when he wasn't supposed to. And I was mad. And I remember pushing him. And again, it was like, I know I just crossed a line, but it's his fault. So there's nothing I need to change. And the solution to all of that was just to drink through it. But it, I have always loved my husband, but there were a lot of years I really hated him because I truly thought all of my problems were because of his drinking. I even thought my drinking was because of his. Like, I wouldn't have to drink like this if you just wouldn't get drunk at work. I wouldn't have to drink like this because after I had our daughter, I became a stay-at-home mom. So the finances were entirely on him. I have no income. So it's really his fault. Now, I love blaming other people. I don't like looking at myself. I need it to be somebody else, and I don't want to be the problem. I don't want to be the problem, but I want to drink. That's all I knew.
When did do you remember, like, maybe the first time you went, maybe it's my problem and not his?
I sometimes, I've been sober now for 6 years. I want to say the last year of my drinking, and at that point, he and I had been together for 18 years. It really wasn't until then that I started to think maybe I was I knew I was a problem. Because on the outside, I had this life because, again, I'm hiding everything. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I homeschool my 2 youngest kids. I was involved in church. I was really involved in church. I ran a preschool class at the church, all these things. Any friends I had went to church. They didn't know I drank. They didn't know my husband drank. They had absolutely no idea what was going on in my home. If there were money problems, I would make some kind of excuse for it. I know not to answer the phone once I've started drinking, because you'll hear it in my voice. So I'm just not going to answer my phone. I won't go on social media when I'm drinking, because what if I accidentally put something on there that lets people know I drink? If I was taking family pictures and there was alcohol anywhere near, I made everybody push it to the side. But so everybody thinks I have this really great life. But I wanted to die. I probably about 9 years before I stopped drinking, I wanted to kill myself. I did. And I would late at night, Jason would be passed out, the kids would be asleep, and I'm, my mind is racing. And I'm drinking, and it's just like, I hate my life. I hate my husband. I hate my kids. I love them though. But they're the problem. And I would write these suicide notes at night. I would write one to everybody. I would write one to my mom and my dad and my husband and all 5 of the kids. letting them all know how this is all their fault, that I felt this way. And then I would start to feel guilty, and I would rip up the letters. I always ripped them up into tiny pieces. And I would throw them out, and then I would, just take another drink of whatever I was drinking. And then I would pass out, and I would wake up just in despair that I woke up, and then, soon after I started writing those notes, I always try to share in a general way, but there's parts of my story that are important, and didn't just shape me into the alcoholic I am, but the sober alcoholic I am. And because of getting sober, like I could see, why I thought the way I thought and how sick I was. But my mom attempted suicide, and she was fine. She survived it, after a couple days on a ventilator, all of that stuff. And I was furious at her. Not because she had tried to kill herself. Like, of course I was sad. I had a great relationship with my parents. I really did. My dad was my favorite person, and I had a really good relationship with my mom, but I was mad at her because I felt selfishly like, now that you have tried to kill yourself, well, I can't now. I can't, because what will everybody think of me? So I had to change my thinking. So at night, I'm not, like I said, I've had a couple blackouts. I'm a remember everything drinker. Of course there's hazy, fuzzy moments, but for the most part, when I wake up in the morning, I can remember the conversations. I can remember the things I said and did. And I'm grateful for that. I'm glad. I don't ever want to forget that. But I would just start praying to God at night, do not wake me up. I don't want to live this life anymore, because I know I'm not the problem and everybody else is the problem, but I know I'm not doing things right. And I don't want to hurt these people, and I don't want to do this anymore. And that was for quite a few years. And obviously God did not answer that prayer.
That was a good one not to have answered.
Yeah.
But I know that feeling of not wanting to live anymore. I had that myself. It's a very hopeless place to be.
Yes.
Yeah. What was the moment that you realized you needed help?
That was probably about a year long, very gradual moment. My last year of drinking, really my last 6 months of drinking, March of 2019, I decided not to drink for that month. Not because I'm an alcoholic, but I'm just not going to drink. Instead of dry January, I was going to do dry March. Like, I'm just going to do dry March. It's not because I want to get sober. It's not because I want to stop drinking. In my mind, it was just like, maybe you'll lose a couple pounds, that kind of thing. So I did not drink from March 1st to March 31st, however many days are in March. But in that month, my husband tried to kill himself, and I had to call 911. And our only child home at the time was our daughter. At that point, she was 11 years old. I had to call 911, and, they came and they took him. And one of the sheriffs who responded was actually a friend of mine. I was friends with his wife. I knew him from church. And he came to the hospital with me. one of our pastors from the church, who was my best friend's husband, came and sat with me. And I remember thinking, maybe you should not drink after March, and of course my husband was a salesman. He's a smooth talker, and he gets 5150'd and should have been in there for 3 days. But of course he talks his way out. And when I go the next morning to visit him, he has sweet talked the nurse. She's in love with him. And she's like, no, he can go. And a couple weeks after that, April 1st, my reward for not drinking for the entire month of March was a drink. And a couple weeks after that was my son's prom. And I am also a smooth talker, and I talk my justification, where they talk about not drinking at work and stuff like that. I was like, well, I'm because I ended up going back to work. I worked for my kids' school. And it was my son's senior prom, and that's a whole story. But I needed to be at that prom to chaperone, but I wasn't getting paid. And I talked some of my coworkers into buying a bunch of airplane shooter bottles, and let's drink at prom, because why wouldn't we? And I got home that night, and I've been drinking. I get home, my husband is drunk, and I remember being mad at him and then thinking, like, you're a hypocrite, but of course I'm not going to do anything about that. And then, it just, by this point, alcohol's not really doing for me what it used to do. Like, I'm not getting I can't breathe anymore. My mind does not shut off. I don't have any moment of, and I remember one night Jason accused me of cheating on him, and I'm drunk and he's drunk, and I was furious, and I hit him. And I hit him hard. Like, I'm short, I'm little, but I'm full of rage. I have been since I was a kid, and I hit him. And I remember, like, this feels good. This feels like how alcohol would feel. And, I had a good 5 minutes of it feeling good. And then afterward, the remorse hit immediately. Not enough for me to stop drinking, but enough, like, there's a problem here, but I don't know what the problem is. And I started hitting him more and more. And then about a month and a half before I got sober, my dad had a stroke, and we were leaving for vacation. And we're a camping family. We like to go camping. And I'll drink at home in the morning. I don't care, but camping, it's acceptable. Nobody can question me. Nobody can judge me. Everybody drinks in the morning when you're camping. So, I'm excited for this camping trip. I'm on my way to the store. As soon as I get home from the store, I'm going to immediately start drinking. And my sister calls me, at this, I have a sister who's 15 years younger than me, and she calls me and in a panic and says, they think Dad had a stroke, and we're trying to figure out what hospital he's going to, because the stroke happened at work. And I was angry. Like, this man who's my absolute favorite person, he has never let me down. In my mind, he is the perfect dad. But I was mad because I'm like, you're in my way. And I remember thinking, like, this is not right. This isn't right. I shouldn't be thinking this way, but I'm not going to stop. And we eventually found, the hospital he was at. And Jason and the kids, they went off on the camping trip. I said, you guys go. Let me see what's going on. And I took my car, but I brought my alcohol with me to the hospital. And and my dad lived, but it was, horribly affected due to the stroke. But, all of my sisters got to the hospital, were with my mom, and one of my sisters had to fly in, and we were all going to go back to my mom's that night. And I said, hey, will you drive my car home? And she's like, yeah, why? And I'm like, because I'm going to start drinking right now. So I'm in the parking garage of the hospital, not knowing if my dad's going to make it through the night. And I'm like, I have to drink. And I think this might be wrong. I know this is wrong. And then the next morning when we went back to the hospital, I didn't even leave the alcohol in the car. I snuck a couple in my purse. I'm like, oh, I got to use the restroom. I go in the bathroom of the hospital and I cough real loud as I'm, popping the top on my drink. And then, a few weeks out, about a month after that, I had a night with Jason where it was a date night. The kids are all gone. We're going to drink. He and I, we have the hard alcohol. We have our beer. We have our wine. We like shotgun beers in the backyard. We're having a good time. No kids are at home. Nobody's going to get hurt. And he said something to me that made me angry. And I attacked him. I punched him first. And then I started choking him. And then he stood up, not to come after me, because he never hit back. Like he never, ever. He never even would push me off. It was really, now sober, it was very sad. And he stood up, and I was mad that he got up, and I hit him in his left ear, socked him. And he's already partially deaf in his right ear. And he starts screaming. He's like, I can't hear. And I'm like, oh my God, I just made my husband deaf. And I'm like, the amount of terror that hit me, I can remember. I'm very grateful that I'm a remember everything drinker. I'm glad I'm not a blackout drinker. Like, I remember these moments like they happened yesterday, and I just hit my knees, and I kept rocking back and forth, just saying out loud, I'm a bad person. I'm a bad person. Not, I'm an alcoholic, but I'm a bad person. And there's a problem here. And that night, he said, I asked him, I said, cause he picks me up off the ground. He's helping me. And he's like, it's not your fault. And I looked at him and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, there's something wrong with me, but there's really something wrong with you. And he said, I don't know. And he goes, I need help. And he found, a meeting for us to go to, because he knew about 12-step programs. His mom has now been sober for 49 years. So at that point, she was 42, 43 years sober. His brother now has 18 years of sobriety. And he was a little boy running around the rooms. So he knew about it. And he found a meeting, and he told me, because I know nothing about it. I've heard of it. I know nothing about it. And he says to me, he was like, I need to go to a meeting. He said, but I need to get drunk before the meeting, because if you drink, you can't share. You're not allowed to share if you've had a drink. And I'm like, you know what? Whatever. I don't know the rules. He does, apparently. So, but if it means he's going to get help, because maybe if he stops drinking, I won't have to drink. It wasn't crossing my mind that I was going to stop drinking. I just thought maybe I won't drink so much. And so he found a meeting for us to go to, and I picked him up from work, and sure enough, he's drunk. And I'm like, whatever, we're probably going to get kicked out, because I don't think you should show up drunk. And, we went to that meeting, and we did not get kicked out. Turns out if you're drunk, you probably should go. And I still didn't know that I was an alcoholic. And I wasn't ready to stop drinking, but I went with him for that meeting, and I went another weekend, or went another Sunday, and it turns out they were speaker meetings, so he couldn't share anyway. And I heard a woman share her story, and she started talking about how she thinks about alcohol. And it was the first time I ever heard somebody say out loud how I had been feeling and thinking for the last, almost 30 years. And it was like, oh my God, I'm an alcoholic. Oh, is that what the problem is? Didn't occur to me until that moment.
Wow. That's that's, I mean, it's amazing that, you heard what you needed to hear,
Yeah.
And I was trying to think of, well, one question I had, cause, and you said you were really angry, and you realized you were angry all your life.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever get to the bottom of that anger? Like, why,
I have, it's, even though I had like this really good childhood, like my parents never put hands on me. They really should have grounded me way more. My dad was my dad was full Italian, very angry. And a lot of it stemmed from, a lot of childhood stuff. I didn't know it was trauma because it didn't seem like it to me. But then, I get sober, and then also I do a lot of therapy.
Yeah.
Because I have some outside issues, and but a lot of it was fear. And then I find out it's just that I really do think about myself too much and my needs, what I want. And when you aren't acting right, I think I have the right to be angry. But I know now that rage, even to this day, because I still get really angry. I don't put my hands on anybody. I have not put my hands on one person since I got sober. But I know now that the rage, I'm scared of something. I know that I'm scared.
And I appreciate you even sharing what, that, because it's, I think that's a couple of things you said really kind of, I think sometimes we don't realize what trauma is. We just think it's just the way, well, it's the way I grew up, or it's the way I think. And then, like, and then you talk to somebody, a professional or whatever, and they're like, you do realize
Yeah. Yeah.
normal, or that, or that certainly could have caused, you to react. And then you mentioned fear. And I think, fear is I know for me that my reaction to fear is usually anger. I am, and that's one of the cool things about recovery, is that kind of sometimes it helps us to discover these things and maybe act a little different. I'm not perfect at it, but
right.
But you just, you reminded me of that. So thank you for that. But so what was the hardest part of getting sober, or what was kind of the first steps when you realize you relate and you might be an alcoholic? Then what?
So after that, moment of clarity, I went away for the weekend without my husband. It was just me. My daughter, she's 12 at this time, she went with me, and I was with my sister, and I got really drunk, and I could not take care of my child, and we got into a dangerous situation, and we were having to sleep in my car. And eventually my sister, who was not sober, but she wasn't as drunk as I was, she's like, I can drive. And we were in that car. And I remember trying to tell my daughter, like, just lay down. Cause I didn't want her to even though my daughter she has known I was an alcoholic way before I did. It was just like, don't look at me. And I'm trying to get her to go to sleep. And of course she's not going to go to sleep. She's terrified. And we're driving home and I could not breathe. My chest felt like, I don't know what a heart attack feels like, but that's what whatever I think a heart attack feels like, that's what it felt like to me. And I couldn't breathe. And I put my arms above my head to try to breathe. And she put my daughter put her hand on mine. And I was like, I'm an alcoholic and I need help. I remember thinking that. And 2 days later, I went to a meeting and I raised my hand and admitted it out loud for the first time. Even though I had been to a few meetings, I had never raised my hand, never said I was new, never said I was under 30, none of that. And then, on September 25th, I raised my hand because I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I was dying, health-wise. I didn't, I've done some damage. Like I've done some damage. I had some high blood pressure. It turns out I didn't find out until after I was a couple years sober. My liver was enlarged, not horribly, but enough that they noticed. I wasn't drinking the quantities where I was, maybe gonna overdose, but everything always hurt. My body was just in constant pain all the time. My head and just that constant feeling of, I just want to die because it's the only solution to this problem I have. And raising my hand was equally the best and hardest moment of my life, because I knew if I raised my hand that something had to change, because I just told a bunch of strangers that, I got a problem.
And now you got to do something about it.
Yeah.
So what was early recovery like for you, Vanessa?
Early recovery was, my experience was I did have that pink cloud. I really did. I got a sponsor fast, and she got me into the work. And then, my husband and I share the same sobriety date. And, at that, we were together over 18 years. In those 18 years, one day, and I'm not exaggerating, had I seen him not take a drink. He drank every single day of those 18 years. And I had other than that 30 days in March, the longest I could go without a drink was maybe a week. And, even pregnancy, I still drink through that. And so the first few months, I was just like, he's not drinking and I'm not drinking. Like, wow, who knew? And I like direction, like tell me what to do. Left to myself, I have no idea what I'm doing, but when somebody's telling me what to do, I'm really good at following rules. I'm really good at that. And my sponsor, she was the right amount of bossy. Like, she's not telling me how to live my life, but she's like, you need to go to this many meetings and you need to do this and you need to do that. And I was like, I'll do it, because you're sober and you look happy, and these other people are sober and they're happy. And I would like some of that, because I have not been happy in a lot of years. And COVID hit when I was 6 months sober, and I know how horrible COVID was for a lot of people, but my home group stayed open, and I got really busy because a lot of people stopped going to meetings. They were scared, and I get that. But at that point, I was like, I am not scared of COVID. Like, the things I have done and the amount of fear I have felt with a drink, like, COVID didn't scare me. I was like, I need to be around these people who stay sober. I don't know that I can do this on Zoom. And it was just, my work shut down. My husband's didn't, so it was perfect, because I was a little worried at first, like, oh my God, we're going to be home together for 24 hours a day. I don't know how that'll go. My God, my conception of God, he worked it out. And so I got to go to a lot of meetings, and I got to learn about, commitments and stuff like that, and get to do this step work. And so my first year of recovery really was just focused on recovery. And my kids are older, so I don't have little ones. And especially my daughter, like, she knew what we were doing. She understood. At this point, he was like 18, 19. He didn't really get it. I remember early in, he knew dad, Jason, was an alcoholic. He knew we were going to meetings for him. And I remember one day, I'm getting ready to go to a meeting, and I tell my son, I'm like, he's all, where are you going? I said, I'm going to a meeting. He's like, oh, are you going to go meet Jason there? And I'm like, no, I'm going by myself. And he's like, well, why? And I was like, sweetheart, I'm also an alcoholic. The kid was delusional. He was, he was like, really? So, when my sponsor told me, like, you really need to focus on yourself and that's not selfish, I got to do that. And it was an amazing experience.
So what are some of the best things that have happened to you since you've been sober?
Oh man. Watching my husband, really, like, I got a little scared, because I was like, I don't know him without alcohol, and he doesn't know me without alcohol. And what if we don't like each other? What if the drunk goggles have been on all these years, and I don't know him and he doesn't know me? And thank God that was not the case. I've gotten to know my husband and him know me. So honestly, that has probably been one of the most beautiful parts. Showing up for my kids in the ways that they've needed me. Especially she's the one child out of the 5 who she's been home the whole time with us. The other 4 kids had, other parents who were not drunks. So they didn't see all the bad parts. And just slowly noticing, like, the light coming into my daughter's eyes of she's not scared anymore. That was awesome. And then, and it sounds weird. My dad died 2 weeks before I turned 1 year sober. And it was a beautiful experience. Like, it really was, because I know what I was like when he first got sick, and it was ugly and shameful. And so getting to be sober when he passed away was just mind blowing. Like, being there for my mom and my sisters, who, my mom, even though her and my dad had their problems throughout the years, by the time my dad died, they were married for 41 years, with a couple breaks in between. So my mom had just lost her husband. My youngest sister was only 26 when he died. One of my other sisters was about to get married, all these things. And I just got to show up for them. And then right before I turned 5 years sober, my mom got diagnosed with stage 4 lung and brain cancer. And I got to be sober through that, and not make everything about me. And I was in the room with her when she took her last breath, those are the beautiful moments of, it's not about me and outside stuff. But that I get to be someone who just shows up sober and what do you need? How can I help you? The thought of missing those moments.
Yeah, that's pretty, being there for your parents is, and that's amazing. I had, my mom had stage 4 throat cancer, and I got sober in between. Like, she kind of had me drunk trying to
Yeah.
care for her. And so I'm sure, my mom, she's no longer with us either, but she preferred the sober Joe caring for
right?
her, but it is an amazing thing, and it's something that I cherish as well. That just being there, like you said, showing up. And I know you said getting to know Jason, getting to know your husband. I mean, what are some of the, like, what's some of the differences in your relationship today that's different from when you guys were drinking?
And now we actually talk. I realized, like, we'd never really, I mean, we'd had conversations, but not really, like, not meaningful ones of just, what do you need? Things like very simple things that normal married people probably do all the time. Just being honest with him. Like, I'm not a cheater. I don't have any of that. But like, if I'm mad at him today, I can be, I can tell him, like, I'm really angry with you. And I couldn't do that when he was drinking, not because I was scared or whatever. I just couldn't, I couldn't say that to him because I knew it wasn't going to mean anything to him, because if I was telling him, either he had already started drinking or he was already past the point of being able to remember anything I said. And then, we pray together now every night. And never in my wildest dreams, one, did I think I would ever hear him pray out loud, but that he wanted to pray with me, like just he and I. It's awesome. And we'll joke around, like, there's times we'll go, we'll get into bed and, maybe we're not the happiest with each other, but we'll still hold hands and we'll still pray. And maybe I squeeze his hand a little tighter than necessary, or vice versa. Or, we'll have, one of us will fall asleep before the other. And, he'll tell me, I put my hand on you and I prayed, and I'll tell him the same thing. And I just didn't see our relationship going there. Like, my real plan before I got sober was that I'm going to kill him. Then I'm going to take the kids out, and then I'm going to kill myself. Like, that was how I saw life going, because I just had no more answers. And to just know that I'm going to sit with this man and pray, and I can honestly go to him with anything, and he can come to me with anything. It's still like a dream sometimes. It really is.
That's a pretty good dream,
right?
It's a pretty good dream. No, I think that's pretty powerful, what how your relationship has changed, how different it is, and what it can, what it can be, or what it could be, I don't know. You don't think about, I mean, it's neat. What would you say if there's someone out there listening right now who feels like they're hopeless?
One, I would say, I get that. Like, I know that feeling. I know for me, it was really important when I heard other people share about their hopelessness, and I'm like, yes, me too. because I think I'm the only one who thinks these things and feels this way. It was key for me to know that other people felt that way. And also, what would I tell them? Like, it's so, I don't want to say it's corny and cliche, because it's not corny and it's not cliche, but like, there is hope, there is a solution. And if you're ready for it, me or someone else can help you. And if you're not ready for it, that is also okay. Because my experience is that it took me a few weeks. And I know other people that I've watched and met, I know their experience, that it took them a few months or a few years or maybe a few decades. And then they found the solution because they were ready for it.
Is there anything you wanted to talk about that we haven't?
Not really. I life is not perfect, and it can still be scary, and there's still some rage that likes to come out. But I just know, like, for anybody who might listen, like, what helped me was getting really involved in other people's lives. Like, I sponsor quite a few women, and oh God, I love that. That is honestly probably my favorite part. And I've been pretty lucky in that area. A lot of other people, they're like, yeah, they met with me once. I got one phone call and then never heard from them again, or they were drunk by next Tuesday. And don't get me wrong, I've had those. But I have like 4-5 women that I've been working with for multiple years. And I watched them come in, and I've watched them stay sober, and I've watched them go through their own horrible things and stay sober. And it's like, I get goosebumps talking about it. It's just such a fun experience to get to know somebody that way.
When it tells us that we will not want to miss this.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, and your experience. And I think it's pretty powerful, Vanessa.
Thank you.
But I can't let you go without our rapid fire questions.
Okay. I'm ready.
She was ready for it. She's ready for me. All right. What is your favorite recovery slogan?
How? Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. It's not really a slogan, but those 3 things, the how, it's the answer to everything. How do I do this? How do I get through this? Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness.
What is your least favorite recovery slogan?
This too shall pass.
What do you think is your sobriety superpower?
Willingness.
If you could say one thing to your former self, what would it be?
Don't give up.
What song do you play to lift your spirits when you need a boost?
This is embarrassing. It is a song called Girls in the Hood. Yeah.
I won't make you sing it.
Thank you.
But I will be looking it up after the podcast is over.
Yeah, I'll just say don't have kids around.
Okay. If you could grant yourself one wish to help with your recovery, what would it be?
Wow. Grant myself one wish. More time. Just more time. More time on this earth, more time in the day to help someone else.
What step do you love the most?
Step 5.
What step do you love the least?
Step 11.
What is one of your favorite movies?
Oh gosh, one of my favorite movies. It's called Under the Tuscan Sun.
All right.
Yeah.
And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
It's about time.
I like that. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for
Thank you.
coming on today. And for the rest of you out there, if this episode meant something to you, please share it with one person who needs hope today. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please take the time to write a review. It helps us to share this message with more people. A new episode of The Cup of Joe Show drops every Thursday at noon. You can listen at any time at thecupofjoeshow.net or on any of your favorite podcast apps, Podbean, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and more. Just search for The Cup of Joe Show. Don't forget the "the." And if you're looking for your daily encouragement in your recovery journey, subscribe to our friends at thedailyponderables.com, delivering inspiration to your mailbox every day. Please like, follow, subscribe, and share because someone out there needs to hear this today. Have a good day, everybody.
It's just a laid-back vibe, baby.
We hope you enjoyed today's Experience, Strength, and Hope. We are so grateful you decided to join us. Please share this episode with someone who might need it. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Remember, no matter where you are in your recovery journey, you are not alone. Reach up and reach out to someone. Please do not suffer in silence. Until next time, let's take it 1 minute, 1 hour, and 1 day at a time. Thanks for listening to The Cup of Joe Show.